So you and your boys are welcome in Dodge City as long as you obey the law. If you don't want to cooperate, I'm gonna open you up right now with this shotgun so loud your whole crew's gonna see what you had for breakfast.
Well, Elliot Ness had done it, the Untouchables had won it, and Dunbar was dancing with the wolves. The postman defeated the general, while the mariner swam around that water world. We're talking Costner, tin cup to Silverado, talking Costner, Bodyguard and Fandango. Robin Hood is making the rich pay, going off the board on draft day, talking swing vote, Wyatt Earp and JFK.
Oh, what a beautiful day.
Oh, what a beautiful morning. Except it's not morning.
It's
late afternoon when we're recording this. But you know what? It's a good day to be with the bud, to talk some Costner, and to continue the foray into 3-hour epic westerns.
Yeah.
Maybe the last one.
Yeah, this one wasn't quite the smash hit success that the other one was.
And we have yet to try and do like a marathon talking Yellowstone, because I suppose we could watch 3 episodes of Yellowstone in a row, and that would give us a bit of a 3-hour epic. But I prefer that split up over hour-long more digestible chunks.
Well, truth be told, I watched this movie over like 3 nights. On my second watch, I watched it all in one go, and I felt like, oh, this is a better movie, because the first hour was just a brutal drag. And I was
so a better movie watching it in one sitting, you're saying?
Well, yeah, I like the first time I watched, like, because I tried to. I just been I'm out in the country. The sun goes down. It's like it's darkness all around. It like
right.
Your body just gets put to sleep immediately. So like I just kept on falling asleep every time I tried to watch this movie, and I like walked away being like, man, after that first attempt watching just the first hour, I'm like, that movie's a woofer. And then when you see it all together, you're like, oh, okay, I get what they're going for. But this movie was supposed to be a miniseries. Boy, does it feel like it.
Boy, does it feel like it. Well, before we get too deep in, and after a brief shout out of our Patreon exclusives, Talking Yellowstone, which is at patreon.com/Talking Costner, available now, as well as our Costner multiverse reviews.
Hey, we're just like them Earps. We always got some kind of grift that
we're trying to get rich.
We're trying to get rich. Move to Tombstone.
Yeah,
try our fortune out. You can't get rich working for other people. Working for a salary.
That's right. I don't want a salary. That's right. But far from us to get too deep into it, before we let you know what we're talking about, we're watching this month, we're watching Tombstone, starring Val Kilmer. And hold on a second.
No, wait. Take it back.
Bring it back. No, we will be watching Tombstone as our multiverse review to kind of compare and contrast the tales of Wyatt Earp. But today this is not talking Kilmer, at least not yet.
Not yet.
And we are watching Tombstone before Tombstone.
Where are you going with this?
I don't know. I totally messed that up, and I thought I could build up. We're watching Wyatt Earp. We're watching Wyatt Earp. Starring Kevin Costner. This is Talking Costner. Welcome back. We're gonna keep that in. I don't want you to cut that. I want people to know to feel the realness.
That was as big a jumbled mess journey as this
as
beginning of this
some
movie
might say,
is.
the structure of this movie. So there you go. It all ties together. Yes, Cam, do you want to hit us with some factoids?
Give you the low down dirty. Wyatt Earp,
skinny.
From Wichita to Dodge City to the OK Corral in Tombstone, a man becomes a myth in this thrilling journey of romance, adventure, and desperate heroic action. That's a little IMDb blurb on Wyatt Earp here. I'd say I guess that's accurate.
Yeah, that's what happens in the movie. Sure.
Yeah, sure. They go to all those places. I kind of wish they weren't in all those places for as long as they are.
Could have cut some fat there, but
yeah.
But hey, we'll get into it.
It's like Tombstone had the right idea by just being like Tombstone. We're just gonna tell the Tombstone part.
Let's just do that part.
Because that's the part everyone likes. Right. This movie stars, who'd have guessed it, Kevin Costner.
The one, the only.
As
Except not the only, because there's another guy playing Wyatt Earp around the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
But the one, the only Costner.
There's a lot of people
maybe
that played
not
Wyatt Earp.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe not the one, the only Wyatt Earp, but the one, the only Kevin Costner.
I think he's not a bad Wyatt Earp, actually, though. I think he's pretty good. He's a pretty good Wyatt Earp. Kevin Costner.
We'll dig deep.
Yeah, we should have a wider power rankings on the people that have played him. We've got Michael Madsen playing Virgil Earp. We got Dennis Quaid playing the infamous Doc Holliday. A great turn, dramatic turn by Catherine O'Hara. Don't see one of those every day.
Yeah, and this is right around the time of Home Alone.
This is Home Alone.
This is like Home Alone 2, kind of within a year or two of that. So
yeah.
I remember all of a sudden, I can't say I was completely surprised when she showed up because her name's in the opening credits. But then when she does show up, I had forgotten that. I'm like, is that Catherine O'Hara kissing Michael Madsen here?
There was a few of those in this movie. We got some Isabella Rossellini in a really thankless small part that should not be so small.
Yeah, that just
Isabella Rossellini, because it's Isabella Rossellini. Don't know why you got her to play Big Nose Kate if you're not going to do anything with Big Nose Kate. But hey, I didn't make this movie. We got Bill Pullman.
Yeah,
everybody's second favorite Bill P.
Just a little before Independence Day. So he's playing a man of authority, but does not fare as well in here as he does fighting the aliens from Washington.
We got everybody's favorite sleazeball, Tom Sizemore.
Yeah,
just one of the most. Just Google the stories on Tom Sizemore. That guy's an animal. Not a bad actor though. And then we also got everybody's favorite stern man in a western. We got Gene Hackman, who did like Unforgiven, this, and then The Quick and the Dead within like 3 years of each other.
Yeah, and a nice reunion, although for only 2 scenes, really kind of like a scene and a half, since, of course, one of our hidden gems from the early era of No Way Out, and a man who Kevin Costner has since said is I don't know how he phrased it, the greatest actor he's ever worked with, said Costner of Gene Hackman. So
he said Gene Hackman was the best actor and Sean Connery was the biggest star.
And the biggest star, yeah. So
this movie was directed and written by another familiar name in the Costner canon, Lawrence Kasdan. You'll remember him, of course, from directing Silverado and The Big Chill and writing The Bodyguard. And he's also known for writing Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. He's Lawrence Kasdan. If you don't know him, you should know him.
And if you listen to this podcast, you should, because we've been talking about him lots.
Yeah, so go back and listen to those other episodes. Because
what have you been doing with your life?
They're good episodes about better movies than Wyatt Earp.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm not gonna. For once, I'm not gonna tip my hand on how I feel about this. And I think usually we do this the other way. So you tip this is good. Give people a teaser up front. I'm gonna save it. People have to really give us the algorithm stats we want by listening deep into this to find my opinions.
I'm a big Western fan. I'm a big Western fan. So I was really excited to watch this, and there is a lot I like about this movie. So I'm not gonna. This isn't a total trash on my part. Let that be.
You're just getting it out early.
I'm just getting it out early. I'm just saying what everybody's thinking when they start the Wyatt Earp podcast. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
We got Dan Gordon also worked on the screenplay. He wrote The Hurricane and also wrote the last Rambo movie, Rambo: Last Blood. Just so you know.
I just on a larf as a background while I did some dishes because it's on Netflix now. I just started that movie and it's
racist.
Certainly.
A Rambo movie racist? I don't know.
I was just gonna say, which one? But I threw that on the background just recently. So
it certainly seems like the most racist of them.
Yeah,
can I say that? And that's something.
Yeah, and probably because it's set in
America.
The most and the closest to current time period. So but hey, this ain't talking Stallone.
No, it's not.
This is talking Costner.
As much as we veered into talking Stallone a lot during.
And again, maybe we will do that. But
moving on, we've got a great cinematographer here. We got Owen Roizman behind the camera. He's known for a lot of early Friedkin stuff. He did The French Connection, The Exorcist, also was nominated for Best Cinematographer, also for Network and Tootsie, and he was nominated for this. And then we've got a score composed by James Newton Howard, who did The Fugitive. He teams up with Kevin again for Waterworld and The Postman. He also did The Sixth Sense, The Dark Knight, and a really great score, Nightcrawler. I like all those scores, I think. Well, not The Postman or Waterworld, but I like all those other scores, I think, more than this one. The Waterworld one actually isn't bad.
I was just gonna say, I think it's fine, but certainly, I would say on a pretty iconic career.
Yes, for sure. The movie was filmed from July 19th to 1993. Sorry.
Well, that would be
Try again.
We're not cutting any of this, people. It's all staying in. You're getting all warts and all.
Warts and all. It's all getting cut. I only make myself sound like a genius on this podcast. It's like everyone's thinking, that's Cam edited to sound good. He still sounds like a fucking idiot.
That's the best they could do.
That's after 58 takes. That's the best we have.
Yeah, we record each episode. I would say 50 to 60 times because we want to deliver the best to you. And and trust us, this is our best that you're listening to. This
is the one you got. So it was filmed from July 19th, 1993 to December 15th, 1993. So a long schedule. And it was released June 24th, 1994. It had a budget of $63 million. Had an opening weekend, not a terrible opening weekend, $7.5 million. Not great, but not terrible. It had a worldwide gross of $56 million. It only did $25 million domestic. That's what you might call a flop. That's a big old flop for the K-Man.
Yeah, and it was, especially when you're thinking of what he's coming off of recently, even if they aren't necessarily all critical darlings, they were all like roaring box office.
He's coming off Dances with Wolves, 400 mil, Robin Hood, 400 mil, JFK, 250 mil. Bodyguard, 400 mil, and even A Perfect World.
Perfect World did fine,
135 mil.
Still a box office success, absolutely,
big time. Yeah. And then this, and especially, there's no not comparing it to Tombstone. There just isn't. It's just one of those things where Hollywood.
You can't talk about Armageddon without talking about Deep Impact, and this is kind of the same situation.
Exactly, or the two Alexander movies that came out at the same time.
Yeah, that's right.
Neither of those were winners, I don't think. I think that was both like, guys, why are we doing this? Why are
I've
we
heard
doing
the director's cut of the Oliver Stone one is like fine, but also that's what there's 15 different cuts that you can get on DVD. It's just like wild. So
yeah. Tombstone, I think, had like a budget of like 25 mil and made like 80. So it was like a huge success. Came out the year before. So it also, like, a lot of times these things, like, it's a race to the box office to see which one's going to do well. And Kevin was attached to do Tombstone.
Really?
And
I did not know that. I hadn't done any of my Tombstone looking up.
Oh, yet, so. He was supposed to do Tombstone. Didn't like that it wasn't Wyatt Earp focused enough. So this is where we're seeing the K-Man just getting high on the supply.
Yeah, and I think that you can see that happening through this.
There's too much going on. Wyatt's too much a peripheral character. I want to tell the real story of Wyatt Earp, which I think is cool. I think that's really great. Like, they're they take very distinct takes on the Wyatt Earp story, and I really like that both exist.
Yeah, and especially talking about as we've said, that such a long history of Wyatt Earp in cinema and played by iconic people. I think that no one had done it like this.
No one had done it like this. Tombstone has been done. Tombstone, especially like if you look at, a lot of people talk Val Kilmer, and Val Kilmer is great as Doc Holliday, but his Doc Holliday is just a Kirk Douglas rip from Gunfight at the OK Corral. It was within the lineage, and even Kurt Russell's Wyatt it really does take a back seat to the rest of that movie. Like Wyatt Earp, he's very good in it, but he doesn't steal it. No. Obviously, that is Val Kilmer's movie. As it should be, he's fantastic in it. You might say this is Dennis Quaid's movie also over Wyatt. Like Dennis Quaid.
Some may say. I'm not going to tip my hat, but some may say.
That character is just made to steal the scenes. And so, like, when you do Wyatt Earp as, like, I don't want to do the myth, I don't want to do the legend, I want to break it down. But then you got Doc Holliday, who's still, like, a Dennis Quaid, who's still very much playing into the myth of this Doc Holliday character, larger than life Doc Holliday character.
Larger than life. That's what I was going to say. That's right.
So Costner is working on Tombstone, doesn't like where the script is going, doesn't like that it isn't enough about Wyatt Earp, and he goes to his friend Lawrence Kasdan, who's developing this 6-part miniseries, and says, I want to do what you're doing. I want to do this, a full kind of deconstruction of the myth of Wyatt Earp, which sounds cool. They narrow it down to 3 hours, which is still a long ass fucking movie.
Yeah.
Kevin doing another grand biopic Western epic. I just don't think the goodwill was there for it, especially when Tombstone had already come out. And
yeah, and that's what, when you were saying, you can't talk about this without talking about Tombstone. Honestly, for me, I feel like you can't talk about this without talking about Dances with Wolves. Like,
yes.
just not simply because,
and
Unforgiven, yeah. But I just, especially because we have been walking through Kevin's career and his life going through, I think that's what will come up for me quite a few times is comparing, contrasting, particularly what works really well in Dances with Wolves that I think is that many things that are attempted here that work really well in Dances with Wolves, but don't end up just working in the same way. So
yeah, the movie is number 32 for Costner all time. It is number 16 for
in box office.
Yeah, for box office, and it's number 16 with adjusted box office. Now, Costner is about to have a stretch of a career where not a lot of movies make a lot of money, but not a lot of movies necessarily cost as much as money as this movie cost.
With the grand exception of one in particular, with the exception of Waterworld, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, and Postman. I mean, Postman. Okay, like in that section of the career.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's not the biggest failure, but it kind of portends some of what might be to come.
Yeah, and I think that's just to kind of say it up front. So we're looking ahead. Is Waterworld our next?
No, we've got the war.
We've got the war, right?
And then Waterworld.
So I think then it honestly kind of including the war, I think, this we kind of talked about, we foreshadowed this a little bit earlier in the season that we're starting to get to kind of the beginning of the end of the royal flush run that he's got of just killing it in every genre, and with epics that are overly long, honestly, like JFK, that still work really well. Now I think we're really looking, and probably if we put ourselves back in the seat of producers and production companies and distributors, where we see why people start to get a little more shy. He has a lot of influence and equity and credibility, and can be given these big giant budgets, but just we've seen him go out on the line for Field of Dreams. We've seen him put everything behind Dance with Wolves when nobody else got it, and do a film like JFK, which people really questioned, and be successful. And now we're starting to see what some might say is a slump, and people who hold the purse strings for this may be starting to get a little more shy at how much they're gonna trust him. I wouldn't say we're certainly not at Waterworld and the Postman here. No. There's no question about that. But I do think when you say the word, it portends a bit of an omen of what is to come. I do think this film in particular might be more of the beginning of the end of that initial late 80s, early 90s not just home runs, grand slams every time.
And the thing is, if he did Tombstone, like, he would have been more box office than Kurt Russell.
Oh,
if he
certainly,
did Tombstone,
at this
he
point,
he would have had another one, and it would have just been like, Kevin, go do something, another fun one. Match your fun energy with the Robin Hoods of the world. Just go do another fun shoot 'em up Silverado Western. It would have been massive for his career.
And looking at, Kurt Russell is certainly still he's still a star, and he's still been a movie star, not to the level, especially of the prestige level that Kevin Costner has been. And so when we do our Tombstone multiverse review, which you'll have to go to patreon.com/TalkingCostner and sign up for that level to listen to, I really think that'll be a fascinating episode, not just to break down that movie and compare and contrast them as films, westerns about Wyatt Earp, but particularly the what could have been had he chosen Tombstone, like you said, how that trajectory could have changed. And who knows, because maybe when Kevin puts his mind to something like Field of Dreams about, famously, I'm going to go do a movie about corn. He can, to his credit, I think it's a beautiful thing that makes him able to, I would say, be like a genius at times. Is he trusts his gut? He doesn't get dissuaded from his vision, but that is there's a very fine balance, and that's a double-edged sword. So who knows? He might have still been committed to the Waterworlds, the Postmans.
You live by it and you die by it.
You live by it and you die by it. That's right.
And he's about to get fucking gutted on this.
We're about to watch a movie where he is never grazed by a bullet. Unfortunately, he does get got.
He does get got.
With some, maybe not some bullets, but some bombs to come.
So award season, obviously not great for it, but was nominated for Best Cinematography for Owen Roizman. And then, of course, our favorite awards, the Razzies. Kevin earns himself the Worst Actor Razzie. It gets the Razzie for Worst Remake. It's nominated for 3 more Razzies. Worst Picture, Worst Director, and this was my favorite. Worst on-screen combo, Kevin and any of his 3 wives.
That the Razzies went like I love a good roast. I love a good rip. But I think the Razzies, especially in this day and age, were just bored. They're like they're just funny. Trying to find funny. Oh, I'm not. That is great. I just think, Razzie for worst performance. We'll get into it.
It's
not
going
to go that far.
I actually think Kevin's quite good in this movie.
As are all of his wives.
And I actually think he's good with all of them.
I agree.
Not so much the first one, because Kevin playing the young man just with that red wig is just terrible.
But
we'll get into it right now.
Yeah.
Okay, we open up, and we're just basically at the very beginning. The famous scene, the shootout at the OK Corral, is about to happen. Wyatt's in the saloon. He's got a piping hot cup of coffee. Can I just say that coffee is piping.
Hot cup of Joe.
Hot cup of Joe. Just waiting. Smash cut to a very Iowa cornfield, maybe. I don't know.
That's right.
A cornfield. And we see young Wyatt. He's running away from home. He wants to join his brothers who are fighting in the Civil War. And he's caught. He runs into his old man, Gene Hackman, playing Nicholas Earp. And he says, you got to stay. What would your mother say if she lost another son? Your brothers will be back. It says, you gotta stick to your honor, stick to your duty. You're here to do the corn, do an honest man's job. Nothing matters more than that. The boys come home, James and Virgil. They're both gunned up a little bit, shot. And Nicholas Earp announces at the dinner table that he's going to move the family to California. These Earps, they're constantly searching for more fortunes elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. They have a difficulty, as Wyatt's mom points out at the table, laying down roots, much to her chagrin.
It's always the grass is always greener. There's always another meadow to dig into and mine. So
and on the flip side, a theme that comes up of maybe there is in our lives certainly times to move on and times to get going and not times to let the what's the expression?
Tom Petty lyric there.
The Rolling Moss.
Rolling Stone gathers no moss.
Gathers no moss. Yeah. So that's definitely a theme that comes up as well of maybe the importance of moving on when the going's good.
Yeah. And he says, this is obviously a very, once I heard that, I'm like, oh, that's thematic. Nothing counts so much as blood. The rest are just strangers. We know Wyatt and his brothers are right. They're a gang. They come together. On their way out west, they're taking a wagon train. Wyatt sees a man gunned down in a gunfight, and that changes a man.
It do
as a young or a young boy at this point.
Yeah.
Then smash cut again. Now Wyatt's old. He's in a bar. He's
quite old. In fact, some might say too
old
to for be 7 years later after he was maybe like a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah, he ages about 25, 26 years in this 7 years.
And I know it's the 90s, and especially in the 90s, we love like having just the one actor and watching the whole life.
I know, but
you gotta, you're right. So they put this red wig on Costner, and he certainly, I will say, performance-wise, he brings the zest and the energy of we're back in Silverado here.
For sure.
So performance-wise, I buy it, but it's just, I mean, you say, I don't know why they went with saying 7 years later when we've just seen him as like as max age 16, and 7 years later we're getting a Costner that you could not be fooled as any younger possibly than early 30s.
32.
Forget that we've watched him in other roles, and so I will say that's just a really easy thing early on, that just say 12 years later. Just give me a number that I can't do the math too fast and I will ignore it, but I'm supposed to believe that this is like a 23, 24-year-old Kevin. Come on.
Yeah. But he's in a saloon. Yeah, here's another surprise performance. What's her name? Sally.
Oh, Téa Leoni.
Téa Leoni, yeah.
Téa Leoni was showing up all over the place in the 90s in these very, very small parts before she became. Yeah, I think she's great. I think she always hits it out of the park. I feel like there's a few other movies where all of a sudden you're like, hey, is that Téa Leoni? Oh, she's in A League of Their Own. She has a very small part in A League of Their Own, and you look back and you're like, that's Téa Leoni. So Téa Leoni, great actor, all-time beauty of Hollywood, I would say.
Yeah,
and,
she's gorgeous.
She's great, and I think again in a movie where there are roles that I wish had more depth to them, and some roles that I think could have been cut entirely. I think this is a perfect example of a character who serves their purpose perfectly.
Yes,
we don't need to ever see her again. We don't need to know more about her, but for this scene where we see early, young man Wyatt, I think she perfectly moves the story along.
She does, but before this, we've got a whole bunch of other gobbledygook about a boxing match and him as a stagecoach driver, none of which we care about, and that's why I skipped right on over it. Yeah. But he gets in a bar fight because some guy wants to fight him, and another guy he's with. Who wants to fight him? Yeah, the Karate Kid.
Cobra Kai. Sensei John Kreese himself, Martin Kove, who I was like, is that Martin Kove? And like in the most Martin Kove role. And this is like, I would have to look up his IMDb, but I think it's probably been a little bit of a gap for Martin Kove in terms of the stuff he was in. First
Karate
Blood
Kid
Part
is like,
2. He's Karate Kid is all the 80s.
83, 84?
Oh, the first one,
and second is 86.
Karate Kid 1 is 84, Karate Kid 2 is 86, and he's only in that for a second. He's in Karate Kid 3 a lot, and that's 89. And then he's in First Blood Part 2 as well. So certainly like tons of roles in the 80s. But all of a sudden I'm standing there and it's the perfect role for him. He just the dickhead guy who wants to pick a fight. And just so awesomely gets a billiard ball in the neck in true like Karate Kid, a creative fight move fashion. And I'm a huge, and especially I love Cobra Kai. I think it's that show is so ridiculously good, and Martin Kove is really having a renaissance with that character, and so I'm a big fan, and I loved seeing him show up in this movie.
Yeah, he was great. So yeah, he's trying to pick a fight over this boxing match that Kevin Costner, that Wyatt Earp refereed. Like we don't care.
Bet on.
Like we don't care.
Yeah.
And Kevin just picks up a pool ball and chucks it, hits him right in the throat, takes his gun away. Has a really great scene where he's like, this man wanted to gun me down for nothing. Like, and earlier, Nicholas, he's got this great line that's also kind of indicative of thematic, It says,
I'm a man that believes in the law. After your family, it's about the only thing you got to believe in. But there are plenty of men who don't care about the law. Men who will take part in all kinds of viciousness. Don't care who gets hurt. In fact, the more they get hurt, the better. When you find yourself in a fight with such viciousness, hit first if you can. And when you do hit to kill.
Yeah. When you come, the law is not going to do anything to those people. So this is, Kevin is where we get confronted for the first time, like, oh, this guy will just kill me if I don't stop him. So he takes his gun, goes out with Sally, even though Sally, is trying to get him to go upstairs. He's like, no, I got this girl. And Lamar.
Yeah, and we see that we really, which I will say, one of the things that I think is done very well in this movie, we see these moments of the character arc of Wyatt Earp. So he grabs the billiard ball, hits him with that in a non-lethal shot, and takes his gun away. So we see the Wyatt Earp that as he says on the stagecoach to Butch earlier, when Butch asks him, "Have you ever killed a man?" and he said, "No, and I hope I never have to." So this is the Wyatt Earp we have right now. The guy who he absolutely does not want. He wants to be a man of peace. He wants to be a man of peace.
He wants to go back to Lamar, Missouri, or wherever it is, and settle down with the girl who smiled at him once.
That's right.
He's the opposite of his father right now, where he wants to settle down. He's young. He's idyllic. I love that the line too. Sally says something like,
"Why? I guarantee you, she don't know what I know."
I bet you're right about that. Those things have changed in Lamar.
That's
awesome. But then he kind of goes out and he puts on that guy's gun and he shoots up at the fireworks.
Yeah, we see the moment
much like Jake. Boom.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And earlier as a young man, we see him pointing his rifle, pretending to play war, and he shoots at the moon, So, there's some good thematic stuff that's going along here. It isn't bad. It just needs to be...
This is still Lawrence Kasdan. He knows he knows scripts and he knows characters. He knows telling stories through the highs and lows of the lives of characters. So that stuff is working.
Yeah, and so he goes back to Lamar to marry Urilla. We get a great James Gammon cameo.
We've talked about him a bunch of times. The manager in Major League, James Gammon, is just
in Silverado.
Great.
In Revenge.
Yeah, all-time great character actor. All-time great character actor.
Great. I love he's got a line too because Wyatt mentions that he's going to propose marriage and James Gammon's wife starts crying. He's like,
"When do you expect this proposal to happen, Wyatt, so we can all join in the crying?"
We all go partaking in the crying. And then of course Urilla says he's proposed to me every day since he came back. And a great button on the scene just ends going back to James Gammon. So she says he's been proposed to me every day since he's been back in town. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's basically all we got of James Gammon. So Urilla gets pregnant. She dies. She gets the
pox. Well, she gets typhoid. She gets
typhoid.
The fever.
She gets the fever. She dies. Wyatt goes on a big old bender, burns down the house.
An all-time bender.
As you do. I've been on a bender, but I ain't never burned down my dead wife's house.
You know what? We're still young, Cam.
We're still young. The world hasn't ground us down to a pulp just yet.
That's right.
And maybe when it does, I'll have Catherine O'Hara go, "Boy, you are cold,"
Yeah.
Maybe I can become a famous gunman too. But that rounds out that first act. Got Wyatt on a bender. Take it away.
Yeah. So we've gone from seeing just the plucky, young, idealistic Wyatt into just the one at the lowest. Probably, I would say, the lowest of the low of his entire life. / this movie is really this is rock bottom for him.
Yeah.
And he ends up in another town in Arkansas. He is basically begging for someone to buy him a meal. This kind of dapper, slightly condescending man says, "Well, I'm not going to give you money, but I'll arrange for you to have a meal." And what does old Wyatt do? The guy's back is turned. He beats the piss out of this guy, steals his money, and steals his horse, and steals his hat to boot. So
this is the heroic Wyatt Earp I've been hearing about.
Yeah, I cannot.
Doesn't sound like it.
No, so he goes off to another town. He sells the horse. Ends up getting basically he's a very suspicious character, riding in drunk, looking like a bum, selling this nice horse with this nice hat.
As the guy, if he wants a hooch, wants a sniff,
wants a pinch of this hooch, and throws him his hat. And so he's arrested in a bordello. Great scene with the very short scene, but with the lady of the night who's there.
Yeah.
Just this kind of moment of self-reflection on where he's sunk to, and she's kind of trying to help him out a little bit. But then they bust in, they knock him out. He's set to hang. So just like Jake in Silverado. Jake's gonna hang, and so is Wyatt. But who should show up? The what was Hackman in No Way Out? The Secretary General, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Defense himself. His dad comes out. Wyatt Sr. comes to bail him out, and a man who has prized himself on the law, which obviously then
he's a lawyer.
Which obviously sinks into to Wyatt under false pretenses, bails him out because he says, I gave them $500 to bail you out, and I'm going to defend you in the trial, but there's not going to be any trial because if you go to trial, you're going to hang. If they catch you, you're going to hang. So you're going to get on this horse. You're going to leave Arkansas. You're going to never come back. So we have this just a really beautiful character moment, and this is the last we see of Gene in this movie, which I was a little bummed about. His story really is over here, but just because Gene Hackman's so good. So he breaks the law to set his son free and to give him a second chance at life. And Wyatt flees the state, rides off into the night. When we come back, he is now working on particularly, we're really going flip side from Dances with Wolves here. Yes. He is now working as a driver, as a buffalo poacher, and he meets Bat and Ed, played by Tom Sizemore and Bill Pullman, the Masterson brothers, and they become his skinners. So he is the one with the good shot to go out and get the buffalo, and they skin the buffalo, and then they take them back for a profit to the yard. And I actually did really think it was a bit of a nod to Kevin's history and also Dance with the Wolves, that when we roll into the camp where they are selling, where they're dropping off and selling their skins, their fur, their buffalo fur, just the way it's designed, you just see there's these massive piles of the fur and these massive piles of bones, and so there's nothing glorious or the open possibility and the profit of the Old West. It really does. It does have this really macabre look to it. And we see these scenes with Bat and Ed that look like they're shots right out of Dance with Wolves, of the buffalo on the ground being skinned. Now, these ones are actually kind of played for laughs because Bill Pullman in particular he's got a weak constitution and can't deal with the smell. But it is just really interesting to think back to Dance with Wolves and then to see these scenes. So they end up working together for a bit. And then Wyatt goes to join his brother James in Wichita, who's working in a saloon, and his wife, who is also a lady of the night. They have a pretty great conversation there too about he obviously at first has a problem, and he says, "Well, I can't believe you're with her. Like, she's a whore. Like, what are you doing?" And he says, "I'm doing the same thing as everybody else is doing with her. She just doesn't charge me." And like, all right, well, James, if it doesn't bother you, I guess it shouldn't bother me. And James just kind of gives him yeah, exactly, it shouldn't. Fuck off.
Yeah. I'm so glad it doesn't bother you.
Exactly.
I don't care.
Yeah, so I just thought that was a good little scene to set up because the wives of the Earp brothers in particular do have a large part throughout this film.
And we get the sense already here too. Wyatt's hoping to open up his own saloon, or like he's got a lot of ventures he's dreaming up that he wants to make his own fortune somewhere.
Yeah, we've got that about the Earps. They're always looking for they're always looking for the next thing to get rich. Wyatt ends up shooting down a drunk who's shooting up the town in what I think is a really great scene and really well shot.
It is, yeah.
There's just basically we just hear yelling and see gunshots coming out from this house, and we see the deputy marshal there, who they're all saying like, "Are you gonna go in there and get him?" And he's just going, "Hell no!" Like, he's like, "I don't get paid enough for this." So so Wyatt takes his gun. And I
don't understand how any of these lawmen survive. Like, how are they all not? There's 4 of them. There's 4 Earps, and there's like a million McClorys and Clampens.
I think that and of course I wasn't there, but I understand it to be quite true. Something this movie I think does historically well is that everyone back then was a horrible shot. That's why then when you get a Wyatt Earp or a Billy the Kid or whoever it is,
or Doc Holliday,
Doc Holliday, they become the thing of legend because, and we see this other times later with Ed they're kind of getting each other in the leg, in the gut. That first scene where the two guys spill out of the bar when Wyatt is young, they each get off like 3 shots, and then they both end up killing each other. So I think that moment in Dumb and Dumber, Harry, you're alive. And you're a horrible shot. So I think that's what's going on here a little bit.
For sure, of course,
He goes in, he disappears in, and then we just hear the guy kind of like roar at him, and I can't even remember what Wyatt says, but we just hear this little retort, and then like hear like a clunk, and then and then the shooting stops, and out walks Wyatt, dragging this guy by the foot, kind of just like dusts himself off as if nothing had happened. Great scene. And then they look at him, and the marshal realizes like, you need to be a deputy, and I'll pay whatever you want.
You just got yourself a job.
You got yourself a job. Pins the badge on him. We get to see the first moment of Wyatt Earp wearing that lawman badge. So he ends up being there for a bit, becomes a pretty strict lawman, and then is later joined by his younger brother Morgan, who we saw very briefly around the kitchen table, and very briefly when he's running away at the start, unsuccessfully running away through the cornfield. Morgan shows up with his new wife, and there's this moment where I think it's just because he's so happy for his brother or whatever, there's this moment where he gives this lingering look at Morgan's wife when they first introduced, and I thought like, oh, is this gonna go to some like love triangle thing? But I guess it's just maybe she reminds him of
she
Urilla.
looks like Urilla.
She looks like Urilla. So okay, yeah, because then that's what I kind of figured, because they don't allude to it later. But then, so they stay there for a bit, and then Wyatt is recruited to clean up Dodge City. And I do gotta say, the way this happens is this marshal from Dodge City comes out. Wyatt's kind of walking behind some buildings to take a leak or something, and the guy just goes, "Wyatt Earp." And Wyatt Earp spins around and has his gun out, of course, thinking that, it's someone from back in Arkansas who's come to get me. Cobra Kai is back to exact their revenge. He's got a lot of enemies. But I do wish that I could come up behind people in real life and just say their full name and have them spin around like a fight's about to go down, because we don't live in that society anymore. But,
that's a shame.
Back in the day, this was just, you watch this movie and you think, things were just so much better then. I just wish I could go back to
before the sissification of our culture, when men were men.
Yeah, exactly. When men were men and they were all dead or dying of tuberculosis.
Just trigger happy idiots. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, we still got lots of that. So Wyatt is recruited to help clean up Dodge City. Kind of resets the ordinance that no guns are supposed to be allowed in the town. And but actually starts to enforce it. And so we get a good, not quite a montage, but we just really see Wyatt walk into Dodge City and start throwing his weight around it in a big way. He ends up recruiting Bat, who we've Bartholomew Masterson, Bat Masterson, and Ed Masterson. Tom Sizemore and Bill Pullman come back to be his deputies. But in general, he thinks that Ed is just not decisive enough, a little too soft, too affable. He's a guy who wants to talk things down, which is and I think I'll talk when I finish this about my feelings on Ed, but I think Ed is played really well by Bill Pullman.
Yeah,
and
I think so too.
We see, despite the charm and maybe the admirable qualities of Ed, that in the end, Wyatt is right about him not being cut.
Well, and it goes back, because it's that great scene where Wyatt's like, "These are your first two. Go take their guns away," and literally Ed gets like 4 lines in with them where it's just like, "Hey guys, I see you're carrying guns. There's a local ordinance says no guns.
Welcome to town, though, and where you staying?"
And then Wyatt just comes in and cold
just dummies him.
Or a great scene.
Yeah. And I love, he just comes from out of frame. As our friend Jack would say, he dummies this guy. But I do love that they say, I was trying to talk to him before you buffaloed him.
Yeah, and it's great. He's like, "Yeah, well, it wasn't working. They were going to kill you.
You were taking too long, man. You were taking too long." Yeah. And he pulls out that the guy has the other guy that he knocked out, that Wyatt knocks out second, had a tiny little pea shooter hidden in his hand. So had Wyatt not come in and thrown a couple of bows. Who knows what would have happened at that point?
Yeah, I love. Yeah, just like you're not a deliberate manhead. You're too affable, and
That's
that
right.
goes just exactly to what Nicholas said. Gene Hackman said, just there's guys who don't care about the law and they'll kill you, and you better kill them first.
Yeah, and but what we see coming of this is there's a lot of critics of Wyatt Earp, and he ends up being losing his job essentially for being too hard. So he goes.
Some might say he's abusing his power. Un soupçon, a little bit.
Debatable, but the fact is he gets replaced by Deputy Ed Masterson, and he can kind of feel it coming when they come to talk to. It says the mayor wants to talk to you. And they said, well, there's been complaints. Yeah, complaints from who, Ed? The criminals in jail? He said, citizens, also citizens. All
well,
right.
And we also know that Wyatt Earp is also paid $250 per arrest. And then they mentioned like how much he made just on the arrest. We're like, well, the incentive models there is a little shaky.
Cam, are you trying to say that there's cops out there that might not be completely admirable?
Hey.
That might have quotas and detain innocent people. Well, at least this is the Old West, and that don't happen today.
I'm no radical,
I'm sure. Well, this is a long time ago. I'm sure we're way past that now.
I would never suggest such things.
But that is Act 2. What do you think of Act 2 so far? And particularly, Cam, what are your thoughts on the Masterson brothers, who, kind of spoiler alert, have almost pretty much by this point, other than a couple of key scenes coming up, this is kind of it for them. They particularly Bat does not show up in the end like I thought he would. What are your thoughts on the Masterson plotline here in Dodge City?
Well, there's a lot that I have a problem with it. Just in this, up until I think from now on, the movie is great. I'm kind of into the rest of the movie. This was the hurdle. This whole getting us to Dodge City was basically the hurdle.
And are you talking from start of the movie until here? Basically,
I'm not saying we can cut everything here.
Yeah. But you think these are the lower points?
Oh yeah, this hour 10 probably should have been 30 minutes. I don't care about Bat Masterson. I don't care about them working as poachers. I don't care about Kevin working as a stagecoach guy.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much to just edit smash cut. Kevin's in a bar. Sally wants to take him upstairs. He doesn't want to go. Then he throws, boom. Now we're in Lamar. Boom. Yeah. Everything him as a crook, great. Now just put him in as a guy who's just working in Wichita, I think it is. And then I don't need any of that other stuff. We can introduce Bat and Ed, but we don't really need them. But you can introduce them later if you wanted to. He's got to become a lawman within the first 30 minutes, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that just makes the movie a million times better.
Yeah, I agree that in the end, I really like the performances of Sizemore and the performance of Pullman in this. I like the characters, but I agree. When you look at this movie as a whole, you didn't need those characters. What they accomplish things in the story. Sure, they move the storyline and they reveal more about not just Wyatt Earp's life, but who he is as a person. But you could have accomplished what they accomplished through their plot lines very, very quickly and more economically. And I think that is then something, going back to something like Dances with Wolves, that is a criticism of how things move and can be a little meandering there. I think it's a lot worse here because a lot of Dances with Wolves it's this slow growth of him in this new life, and then forming those relationships that stay there throughout the whole movie. So it's okay to take time and have these scenes where it's just the scene in Dance with Wolves of them trading gifts for the first time. It's just the scene where they figure out the first few words. But here we have these characters who are here today, gone tomorrow. And I don't think we needed to have them, especially because I thought, okay, well, if Bat Masterson is going to come back and be part of the gang at the end of the movie, sure, okay, you've kind of earned why he'd have another comrade, but he never does. And I thought, originally watching this movie, I actually thought that it was moving quite well in the first part of this movie until I realized that this movie is 3 hours long, and I was like, "Oh wow, we've got a lot still to go here."
I've seen almost every the main Wyatt Earp movies: the Darling Clementine, Gunfight at the OK Corral, Hour of the Gun, Tombstone. I mean, there's some more, but I think those are the big ones. So like, of course, I know what's to come. I know what to expect. And when I'm like, oh, we're ages away from Tombstone, in that first bit, I'm like, I don't. I appreciate seeing the idealistic young guy kind of be morphed into this cold, jaded guy.
Yep.
So
I think that's very
the
necessary.
wedding,
to
the
see.
family stuff, like is all fine. I don't need him working as a stagecoach driver. I don't need to see him refereeing a boxing match. I don't need to see, like, especially in the Old West, like the gripes or beefs that people have to start fights. Anyways, it doesn't matter. He could just look at a fella wrong, and you know what I mean. You can accomplish it that
exactly.
quickly.
There's so many ways you can accomplish this, and if this was, and this is maybe what we talked about a little bit with some of our longer movies too. If this was modern day and this was going to be a 10-part miniseries, I get having that boxing fight in episode 2, and then in episode 5 when we're going to go meet Doc Holliday, we go, oh, that's the guy from the boxing fight, and look, we've had a justified way to introduce Doc Holliday to Wyatt Earp, but we didn't need that. And movies, especially in this day and age, like movies didn't need that. And I'll give you an example of a movie I think uses its time much better. This is another 3-hour epic that focuses on the life of a particular kind of mythical individual and has a tragic marriage. Braveheart. When you meet Marin in Braveheart, we have a little bit of scenes of them as children. So we set up we never actually see Urilla right before.
Yeah, we should have seen Urilla beforehand.
About her. Yeah, and so we don't get to see that childhood moment. Then he shows up at her door, and I think Annabeth Gish, who plays Urilla, and has actually really been rediscovered, particularly by Mike Flanagan. She's in Midnight Mass and The Haunting of Hill House. I think she's a great actor, and I'm glad that she's getting more roles. I think she's really good in this role. But they spend the time with William Wallace and Marin, where we see some cute scenes together, which I think the dinner table scene accomplishes that. And then you know what the wedding scene is? It's boom, them under the tree. It takes 20 seconds. Then we move on. The next time we see them, basically, it's just before tragedy strikes. So they focus on the right things to make us really invest in the relationship. We don't need the wedding scene to be like, even it's 2 minutes and then the scene where his family's driving away. The time is used, I think, really poorly, and it makes it so that I'm not that invested when she dies, and we've spent a whole chunk of screen time that we didn't need to see happen. And the same thing, I don't need to see anything from when his father frees him and he rides off into the night. The next thing we should see should be just him sitting at the bar when they're like, there's a drunk out there, and and then we cut to the scene where he goes in and he gets we see how he becomes then from just a regular guy to a lawman again. Cut right to there. We don't need any of this in between, and we don't need the Masterson brothers.
And I think it's a good. I mean, what it does, it's a foil, right? Like it's a screenwriting. It's a screenwriting technique. It's very common to go, okay, show another character who deals with the problem in a different way to contrast with the lead. That's like classic screenwriting. So I don't hate it, and I think they serve that purpose well.
I don't think it stops things from moving, but like you said, there's just way quicker, more efficient ways
that could have been done with any other deputy, is all I'm saying. It's also at the expense of we don't meet Doc until an hour and a half in, and then I feel like that relationship is really rushed. That friendship is really rushed. I think it's taken for granted, and yada, yada, yada. You already know the other story, but not everybody does know the full other story. And you're just, okay, these two are really good friends. Why exactly? It doesn't really explain it. In trying to go like, you've heard the story, but now here's the real version. Well, if you haven't heard any of the other story, it kind of...
And I'm like one of those people outside of I saw Tombstone a long time ago, so it'll be a very fresh rewatch for me as someone who hasn't seen Gunfight at the OK Corral, who hasn't seen Burt Lancaster or any of the other people do Wyatt Earp. That then for me was like, okay, I either felt like, am I missing something, or okay, we've already had some time jumps here, so maybe we're gonna go back and see this later. So I think it's I agree. something that it's essentially trying to be kind of like an Easter egg moment before Easter eggs were really a thing, but it doesn't have a payoff. And for those of us who aren't, who have watched all the other Wyatt Earps, the big ones, I'm just left going, did I miss something?
Yeah. Well, we'll move on because we're about to meet old Doc Holliday right now.
Yeah, here we are.
So Earp, we don't even see Earp getting fired. We just see, which is okay, but we see him tracking down in Texas this guy named Dave Rudabaugh. He meets this boxer who he refereed for before, who's now a saloon owner, and says
the one that he called the fight before the guy got his face completely turned into like a turnip.
Like, thanks, that guy went on to get a title shot, so I would have been dead.
Yeah.
But he says, if you're looking for Dave Rudabaugh, who Earp is tracking because he held up a train, he's like, you got to talk to Doc Holliday. And so he goes over and he talks. We meet Doc Holliday, and I think Dennis Quaid gives a really great performance. I really like Dennis Quaid's performance, and I like it in contrast to Val Kilmer. I think Val Kilmer will always be definition of the Doc Holliday performance, but I really like Dennis Quaid in this movie. And I've always said Dennis Quaid is budget Kevin Costner, but Kevin couldn't do this.
I think we have both shittily said that on this podcast. I'll tip my hand here. Dennis Quaid is in the contention in this movie for MVP for me.
Oh, no question.
I think he is so great, and I will say right up front as we meet him, I think this is I am a big fan of Dragonheart. That was one of my favorite movies as a kid. I think he's hilarious in that movie, particularly when they're running the con. I think this is the best performance I've ever seen from Dennis Quaid.
Yeah, for sure.
It isn't close. I think he's so good, and I was almost, when you first meet him, and he's doing this, the Georgia Doc Holliday dandy. I was almost kind of thinking, oh, what are we about to get into here? Because I know I'm watching Dennis Quaid, and I've never seen him even try anything like this. I think he rocks this performance so well. Not only playing the larger-than-life Doc Holliday, but also just the kind of, as he just get progressively throughout the movie, gets like sicker and sicker, and not just as most movies do, which is just like, okay, I have him cough twice as much every scene going forward, but just in how frail he is and how he just takes on the sickness, and yet this man never loses a step in being larger than life and badass as they go through. I love Doc Holliday, and particularly I think this scene here and a scene later towards the end with him and Wyatt drinking in a bar, I think are my favorite scenes of the movie. And when he's just sitting there playing, I don't know if he's playing solitaire or some other Old West thing, but he's playing cards at the table, and they're just starting to kind of get to know each other. I just think it's a brilliant in a movie that has, again, characters that don't need to be there or characters I wish had more of. Here's another example of I think they nail Doc Holliday's relationship with Wyatt Earp. The performance is great, and the arc that it takes throughout the movie, I think, is like,
and of course, these are also supposed to be that great contrast of like, here's this gregarious, larger than life character who is a murderer. He's got a reputation for killing people, but he's this Southern gentleman. And then you've got Wyatt Earp, who's this cold, calculating, stern man.
Yeah, no nonsense. Takes no pleasure anymore.
Takes no pleasure and is only about the law. And he's befriending this guy who's wanted in different states.
Yeah, who's a criminal. Yeah.
I got a great line when he's asked about if he's seen Dave Rudabaugh.
Dave Rudabaugh is an ignorant scoundrel. I disapprove of his very existence. I considered ending it myself on several occasions, but self-control got the better of me.
Yeah. I disagree with his very existence. I want to meet more people on the street of whom I will tell I disagree with their very existence.
But what happens in this scene? Like they meet, but he never helps. He never tells us anything about Dave Rudabaugh. He never.
We don't get to see the hunt for Dave Rudabaugh.
All we see is a smash. Oh, there's a guy in cuffs. Oh, is that Dave? I guess that's Dave Rudabaugh. So I guess he helped him catch him.
Yeah, exactly. And
That's
honestly,
all
that
we see.
happened so fast. I actually missed that entirely.
I only saw it on the second time. I
didn't even see that because then I thought because then he's about to get a telegram saying like of what happens next, and we need you coming back to Dodge City. And I thought, he's gonna see this, but he can't go back right now because he's still got to find Dave Rudabaugh. Oh no, wait, they
no way,
him.
He's got him. Yeah,
they got him.
He's on the way.
That.
Well, because Ed, and so the reason he gets the telegram is so I guess he gives some kind of tips him off in some way about where Dave Rudabaugh is. He lends a hand in some way.
I mean, and that's how it's set up, right? If you want to find him, go talk to Doc Holliday is what our boxing bar.
But then he goes and talks to Doc Holliday and he doesn't say anything useful.
Yeah. They just talk shit.
Yeah. But Ed Masterson, the reason he gets this telegram is Ed Masterson has been gunned down in Dodge City after trying to take away someone's weapons. I really like this from Pullman. I think Pullman does a good job here. When he's like, first it's that same old Ed Masterson of like, hey, do you mind? You got a pistol on you? I should probably take that off you. And then he just like yells like, now, do it now. And it's guy, obeys and then goes out and just guns him down in the street.
Yeah.
So Ed Masterson, rip and dip. Rip. So Wyatt returns back to Dodge City and gets, the same reputation. We just see him marching. I'm Wyatt Earp, and this ends now. It's great. It's perfect.
I thought that button on the scene, this ends now. I thought it's a good button. I thought it was a little. I didn't like Kevin's take there. I thought he had a better take in him. I thought it was a little corny there, but I believe the better take was out there, and
I think this movie. Maybe I just think this movie needs a little bit more corn in it. It's like
maybe.
Like that's what Tombstone's got, and it works so well. And in this, it's just Kevin is doing his. If I say every line as dry as I possibly can, will people take me seriously act, and I just, sometimes that works. And it's almost seeing him trying to do what he's so good at in Yellowstone now. Just have that gravitas.
That's right.
And have that weight.
I think that's really what he tries to push without getting too much into a podcast we aren't at yet. But I think we see that on display in the Mariner in Waterworld, and it just, you're right, now he's found it with John Dutton. He's found it in his elder statesman years. But I agree, he's pushing a lot of that too, where because there's similarities, of course. We get Wyatt Earp and Elliot Ness, who again is a lawman, is a no nonsense man. But there's something about Elliot Ness, even for the critiques that we have in that podcast, there's something still real and charming and down to earth about it. And I think a lot of times in this performance, it is not a bad performance by any stretch of the imagination. But there are these moments where I go, you have a better take in you, Kevin.
I just like what he's doing, and I totally get that he's just going like, I'm the no nonsense, I'm fucking mean business. And like the Elliot Ness performance is more what his Wyatt Earp would be if he was doing Tombstone, if he wasn't doing the deconstruction of Wyatt Earp, which is what he's doing in this movie, which I really appreciate that exists. But there's just give it a little bit more joy, a little bit, like, especially because you can see Dennis Quaid is giving a very grounded, good performance. But there's joy. You can tell that he's having joy in acting. That's a better way of putting what I thought I was walking into in that first scene with Doc is like, oh, Dennis Quaid's really going to chew the scenery, but he really doesn't. It is very maybe not restrained. It's a very disciplined performance. And I think the best moments of that in Wyatt Earp, in Kevin's performance of the kind of cold, no nonsense, I think come with Mare winning him. They come with Maddie in those scenes. And both those because she's so really great. And the relationship necessitates it. And you get to see this side where he's a no nonsense guy, but he really, you can tell he's actually not a cold guy. And the reason we know that is because he continues, even as a guy who's now obviously knows he can't be afraid to pull the trigger, because as he says to Ed, you could get killed or you can get people around you killed. He still buffaloes guys. He's still throwing billiard balls. He still does not want to just gun people down, at least not yet.
And so I think that the scenes with Maddie that have kind of started around this time and really, really become very, very captivating towards the end.
Yes,
I think they display the best of when he's doing the dry, cold Wyatt Earp. And I think you need that relationship to really bring it out.
So we're about to have one of those scenes. So Wyatt is planning to move the whole family to Tombstone. It's a little mining town. He wants to buy a mine, and then they can set up a saloon. And he says, world's our oyster there. Let me tell you, Tombstone did not blow up the way they're. I searched the population. It's got a population of about 2,000 people. So not the big boom bust city that Wyatt predicted, but he's confronted by all the wives. So we got Catherine O'Hara, who's married to Virgil, and then Morgan's wife and James's wife Beatrice, who we met earlier, and then Maddie is there. They're all kind of try to confront him and saying, we don't want to move. We don't want to move. But the boys will listen to you. And he's like, well, I don't give a shit. He's like, we're moving.
And in a movie that lingers a lot on scenes and moments that we don't need. We don't have a link between him waking up one morning with Maddie and wanting to leave some change on the dresser, and she's like, you can do that if it's because you care about me. Is that why? Please say it's why. And he kind of just doesn't say no, so she takes it as a yes. I could have used a link between there and then when she's sitting with the wives. I didn't understand the context of the relationship at that point, that essentially he's kind of taken her as a common law wife, but he doesn't love her. Well, I get that he doesn't love her, but then there's moments where I thought I could have taken a 30-second scene of them being together and him going, this is Maddie, and going, okay, so he's engaged with her, because otherwise I was confused, because he gives her a look in that scene. And so just there's moments that get lingered on, and then there's other moments that I go, both for storytelling and for characters, that I wish had more depth, particularly Morgan and Virgil. It's an odd structuring, particularly for Lawrence Kasdan, who's, I think, really good at structure. And so this might come down to really the editing leaves something to be desired.
Yeah. Shortly after this, we've got Doc and Big Nose Kate are having a big altercation. She tries to shoot at him. He's clearly hit her. He's drunk. Wyatt sobers him up. This is where we get that great, y'all can kiss my rebel dick.
All-time
great line.
Of course.
Great line. Y'all can kiss my rebel dick. This is also where he says, you've been a good friend to me. This is where I go, you guys are friends? Are you guys friends? I guess you're friends.
Yeah, really.
That's what I mean. There's not a lot and he's like, I'll be a friend to you till the end. So we're like, great. He's going to be with him at the OK Corral. He's going to do the Vendetta Ride with him. But we really haven't seen them become friends. Is this the scene they become friends? I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe I'm going to contradict myself from what I just said of needing links. For some reason, this one I was fine with. I didn't feel like I needed more. They're set up as these very different these sort of allies of convenience when they're looking for Dave Rudabaugh, and then when he comes into town, maybe it's just because he's so likable, so I just want them to be friends. But for me, that worked for me. I didn't really mind that they just sort of organically become just because gravity keeps pulling them towards each other.
And now most other movies, gunfight, especially Gunfight at the OK Corral and Tombstone, really focus on those two friendship. that is what the movies are about. The movies are about the friendship between those two, and that strange allies. Yeah, and that is exactly what Costner didn't want to do. Costner wanted to do the Wyatt Earp movie, and so we get the Wyatt Earp movie. Again, sadly, this is the last we see of Big Nose Kate. Isabella Rossellini, thanks for coming.
And that's why.
See you never.
What are there? I have to imagine there's scenes that hit the cutting room floor. We don't meet her in that first scene, which is odd that she isn't just there. But okay, fine. Yeah. They're establishing him, and then we basically have the scene where they roll in, and then this scene, and then she's gone. And so I'm like, where it's Isabella freaking Rossellini. You have an incredible actor and a super engaging character. I don't understand why we don't get to see her again.
And normally in these stories, the whole idea, I don't know if this is factually true, but she kind of betrays Doc and sides with the Clantons and like shacks up with one of the Clantons. And again, that might just be giving too much story. That might just be deflecting off the Wyatt Earp story. The Big Nose Kate is part of the Doc Holliday story, not the Wyatt Earp story.
But then just don't have her. Just don't have that character.
Yeah.
If you're not
or
gonna,
at least don't have Isabella Rossellini play her. Like,
yeah, like I just don't understand why you needed it at all. Like you could have had the moment where we really see, Doc is really an unsavory character. Like you could have done that in any way. It could have been just another worker from the brothel. Yeah, I just felt like it was a character that just sits there with a beginning and no middle or end.
Yeah. So the Earps moved to Tombstone. But the first scene we kind of see is them at a family meeting, all going through the books on all of their different ventures, and it looks like none of them are really turning a profit. That they're just stuck being lawmen again. And the wives here again, led by Catherine O'Hara, kind of confronts the Earp and say like, "Why are you boys the only ones who get a say? Don't we get a say?" And he's got the big rebuke, like, no, you don't. Wives come and go. They die. They leave. They don't matter. And that's where we get the "you are cold," Wyatt Earp. And Maddie, of course, runs off because she's been told that she doesn't matter.
Yeah. He has a brutal dick husband line earlier where she's like setting in the yard. She's setting the table and she's,
What? The food's on the table.
Good, Manny. That way we'll know where to find it when we're finished.
What an ass.
Good. Yeah, that's up there with the I've been watching you from across the room. Great. Well, why don't you go back and keep watching? From The Bodyguard.
I was gonna say, yeah, is that Bodyguard? That's right.
Yeah. And then after this, we get a scene of Maddie asking, like, "Hey, Wyatt, why don't we have children? If family's so important, why don't we have children?" And he's like, "That ain't the deal. No."
Yeah. That's not the bargain we have, and it never was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rough.
So
rough go.
So
for
we're
Maddie.
just seeing Wyatt is this cold man whose life is not what he wants it to be.
Yeah.
He wants to go make his fortune. He wants to make a name for himself, but he's just another goddamn lawman.
Yeah.
Out here in Tombstone. Take us in Act 4 there, Adam.
So we are in Tombstone, and we see the Earps bring in one of the Clanton gang. And Sheriff John, he warns Wyatt not to stir the pot, and that there will be plenty of reward if he just starts kind of looking the other way. But Wyatt, he's a lawman.
Yeah,
he's not some cowardly NCIS Mark Harmon here.
I really like Mark Harmon in this. I gotta say, I think he's fantastic.
Absolutely. I've honestly never, I don't watch NCIS either, but it was one of those ones where I'm like, who's that guy? And I didn't want to break focus. So I didn't look it up until later. I'm like, oh, of course he's the guy who's been on NCIS for like 2 decades.
Yeah.
I think he's, another role that I think actually does work really well, has a fairly good arc, although I feel like in the end we don't really know what happens to him, but I think he has a good arc. He's a good foil for the Earps and for the town of what they're doing in the town of Tombstone. Wyatt ain't having it. He's a lawman. He says if they want to make a fight with the Earps, they know where to find us. So then Josie rolls into town. Now we have briefly glimpsed Josie here earlier back in Dodge City, right? In Dodge, where there's a production of, I'm pretty sure, the HMS Pinafore, which I only know because of The Simpsons, and so I think they're doing a performance.
Is it?
Of the HMS.
No, it can't be that old.
Well, I
HMS
thought that
Pinafore?
too, but it was
No.
like
There's no way. It's
maybe that was just an old song that then gets used in HMS Pinafore. But again, I'm being very upfront here. My knowledge of this is based on Sideshow Bob singing it in The Simpsons, so I could be all over the place.
First performance 1878, maybe.
Well, maybe. There you go. All right.
Oh.
Did it say first performance Dodge City, where then where Wyatt Earp would go
Josie?
on to shoot a man in the street, starring Josie? Yeah. So there's this performance going on, and then someone's hat's one of the actors, their hat gets knocked off to be revealed of this young, beautiful woman who catches Wyatt's eye, and then there's a shootout, and we move on. But then Josie comes into town. It's that same woman. She catches his eye again, and she is the sheriff. What is it? Behan?
Behan.
Bean.
It's like Bean. It's like Bean,
That's,
but
yeah,
Bean.
because I thought it was Bean. Yeah, Bean's fiance. She rolls into town. She befriends Earp, and she ends up promptly dumping. All power to Mark Harmon, but John Bean, you're a nerd. You are.
Yeah. Don't go showing fucking
Yeah,
photos of
what a
your naked
dweeb.
lady.
Yeah, just being a real lewd dude in
Yeah.
the bar, talking about how she didn't want any photos shown around, as he goes into detail describing and showing the photos. So she dumps him. And we end up finding that the Clantons kill the marshal, which makes Virgil the acting marshal, which I thought was interesting. So Virgil becomes the acting marshal.
Yeah, well, here's the thing that's like the interesting thing about Wyatt is like everybody says like in his own time, Virgil had much more of a reputation.
Oh, really? Okay.
He was a higher, like he's the older brother. He was the one who brought his brothers like. He was a war hero. He was higher up than Wyatt was, but Wyatt afterwards kind of sold the myth a lot more. Like he had a memoir that came out. So the story of Wyatt Earp as a thing is a really constructed thing. There's a lot that people have really tried to debunk this myth. And what's interesting is that he also lived long enough for the early movies he was alive still when those movies came
40s,
out.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. All right.
Virgil is much more key to the gunfight at the OK Corral than Wyatt is.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, there you go. I didn't know that. Josie and Wyatt end up getting together. Much like Braveheart, they go out to the woods. They knock boots.
I like that scene. It's got a good payoff. They're out there, and she's like, I heard this story of you saving this guy's life. Is it true? And he's like, I don't know. It's hard to know what's true anymore, but I'll tell you one thing: the stories are always better. Which is also, it's kind of an indictment against this movie, isn't it? That like Tombstone is better than this movie. This movie trying to do the real version, the true version, is like not as good as Tombstone is better than this.
That's funny.
The story version is better than the not story version.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So is the payoff of that line? Is that the epilogue at the end of the movie?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So again, there's a lot of things that
Adam doesn't know how to watch movies, and I don't know why.
I did not catch
listening to this guy.
I don't know. I watched this and I didn't have my phone. Listen, for once I didn't have my phone near me. I was totally alone. I was watching on a nice big screen and a sound system. I'm missing all these things, and I was very, very intently watching. In one sitting, I went through this. I don't know what the fuck do I have a podcast for? I don't know what I'm doing here. God.
Welcome to Adam's existential dread.
I had one job with this thing. So they talk about the future, but they get interrupted with the news that Maddie has attempted to take her own life. So Wyatt goes back. You can see it is weighing heavy on his conscience. I mean, I think Maddie's performance is so good, and Mare is another contender.
Yeah, she's great
for MVP.
She does great,
and you can see. Listen, from what we do see in the editing, Wyatt seems to be as upfront as he can be about what this is, and the fact that okay, we'll be together, but like he says, we're not gonna have kids. That's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like we're not gonna ride off happily into the sunset.
I'm never gonna love you.
I'm never gonna love you. This is sort of a relationship of convenience, and we do, at least from the storytelling. I'm saying from the storytelling perspective, from the screen, we see her kind of just wanting to romanticize this into something more than it is. And so then when Josie comes along, it's of course just devastating because she has built, even though he treats her like crap. She is so loyal to him. And then when Josie comes along, it's devastating. And you can see that does this kind of stuff weighs heavily on Wyatt's conscience.
Yeah. And he never kicks her to the curb.
No, ever. Even at the very end, he talks about how he's going to kind of stop caring, but he still he's a very loyal person, and he is a person, he deeply cares about people. And so I do like that even as we get older, cold, mustachioed Wyatt Earp, you still see the spirit of that kid who was idealistic, that kid who wants to go off and do the right thing and fight the Rebs, and then the young man who is waiting for the girl back home and who will hold up the holster and say, this man wanted to kill me over nothing, and I've got his gun and I won't kill him. So I think that Maddie is so key to what works about Wyatt's story, much more than Josie. And Going has a great performance as Josie, but he goes back, he finds the bottle, and then that she uses to end it, and then he ends up going to the bar. And Doc, I just love Doc's just always around. He's always having a drink. He's always playing cards, and there's just this great moment where where I don't think the editing is perfect in this movie, but there are these great shots where he walks into the bar and Doc is kind of holding up his cards, and Doc I love the way, especially when he's wearing the tiny little like
sunglasses. Yeah.
He's not in this, but he just has these brows. Quaid just has these brows as Holiday, and he just kind of looks up from his card just a little bit and eyes Wyatt walking over to the bar. Cuts back to Wyatt, and Wyatt orders a whiskey, basically
a bottle.
And
we know like he's been sober since he was arrested, right? So he's been sober. Yeah.
And so he orders the bottle. The bartender is obviously kind of reticent. He leaves the bottle there, and this is I would think
if you're gonna break the fast, the least you could do is invite a friend. This is so good.
Doc, and so as the bottle comes down, Doc looks up again, and it's just like this interest, walks over, says that line, and then takes the first shot himself. But then this is what I love, where I really like the character. At first I thought, oh, he's just going to be the guy to go, thanks for the shot, I'm going to take it, walk away with the bottle to kind of like protect him from himself. But he doesn't. He sits there, he pours one shot, he drinks the shot that's been poured, he pours another shot for himself, drinks it, and then he pours a third shot and leaves it, and like gives him the choice. Like, hey, he's Doc Holliday. This character is not one to stand in the way of a man who wants to do what he wants to do. Yeah. And he just delivers this really brilliant monologue.
This is really good writing. Way to go, Lawrence Kasdan. Like this is really good.
Yeah, and I'm sure Lawrence is listening. I'm sure he appreciates that, because Lawrence was waiting for us to
because I've been shitting on it so far.
Yeah, and Lawrence hasn't found much success. So just so you know, Lawrence, I think what you got here, you finally found.
This is a great monologue, and Quaid kills it.
You ever wonder why we've been a part of so many unfortunate incidents, yet we're still walking around? I have figured it out. It's nothing much. Just luck. And you know why it's nothing much, Wyatt? Because it doesn't matter much whether we're here today or not. I wake up every morning looking in the face of death, and you know what? He ain't half bad. I think the secret old Mr. Death is holding is that it's better for some of us over on the other side.
Maybe she's just not cut out for this world, basically. And it's like heartbreaking, and you can see there's a part of Wyatt that wants to recoil at this, but maybe believes it too, but is loyal to her and cares about people. And so it's just whether he's right or wrong, it's just this idea of Doc coming there, delivering the bitterest of medicine. And again, to me, like, it's just, they have the most interesting relationship. Wyatt and Maddie, and Wyatt and Doc just have these super interesting dynamics, really well played out in terms of the writing and the performances. Cut to a guy who can't deliver a poetic monologue, who can't hold his liquor and wax poetic at the bar. Ike Clanton, he's shooting off his mouth about getting the herbs, about killing the herbs, about teaming up. The bartender's there is like, listen, man, you fucking take it outside. Like,
you can't talk like this. You can't
talk like this here. Yeah. And even another guy down the bar is like, you better need some help if you want to go after the herbs. Doc confronts him and promises him, like, hey, if you want to fight, you come to the right place. No problem.
Yeah, my mama always told me never put off killing a man you can kill today. I love that. I shall meet you in the street.
Yeah.
And another great scene with Maddie too. She's like, I'll kill myself. I'll do it. I'll kill myself. And he's the cold like, Maddie, there are people out there I have to kill. I don't have time for this.
I don't have time for this today. They all march over to the OK Corral, and we get the shot. Before that, he's sitting in a saloon and orders his hot coffee, and we get the completion of the opening shot of the movie where he's sitting there and they're talking about
that coffee's still piping.
That coffee's still piping, yeah. And so we see the completion of that. They walk down to the OK Corral where the Clantons are waiting for them. Doc joins them. Just before they get there, they walk by Bean, and he's like, "Don't go over there. You're going over there looking for a fight." And he says, "We're just going to disarm them." And he goes, well, I already disarmed them. And he's like, "Okay, well, then I guess there won't be much of a fight then." And just like Bean knowing that Bean, you don't do shit. You're the worst. You suck, Bean. And the Clantons open fire. And the Earps kill several of them, including what's his name? Curly hair Bill, the bald guy,
who's in The Postman.
He's in The Postman, really?
One of them is. One of them's in The Postman.
Yeah, there's a bunch. The other one I'm thinking of is I can't remember what his name is right now, but he's in Better Call Saul.
Rex Lynn. Rex Lynn is in The Postman. The bald guy.
Yes, that's right. He is. Yes, and that's who I'm thinking of, Rex Lynn. Yeah, he's also a great character in Better Call Saul, and
he's in Tin Cup as well.
That's right. Yeah, just plays a good stern Texan.
And cliffhanger. All right, this guy.
Frank McClory. Great actor. And so he gets got. A couple of them get got. But what the real matter of consequence is that Morgan gets shot in the kind of in the gut.
Well, both Morgan and Virgil get shot, but they both live.
Virgil gets it in the leg. Yeah. They both survive, so they kill several of the gang, but basically it's an incredibly bloody fight in daylight, and some people apparently have a problem with that.
And then the Sheriff John Bean, I love just being like, Wyatt, I'm going to arrest you. It's like, no, you're not. I'm not getting arrested today. It's so good. It's like, no, you're not going to arrest me. And then eventually, eventually they do. But I love. Okay, I gotta say, I gotta give props to this movie and what I think this movie does really, really well. And you kind of said it already. I love how anticlimactic this gunfight at the OK Corral is. I love how gritty and real it is, and just totally dissuades the myth of like this was not some just heroic this messy thing. This was,
and it lasts just a few. Honestly, lasts like. They show it in real time to us in the scene. It lasts maybe 90 seconds, not even.
There's other people, like, definitely some of the critics really were like, this is what you do with the gunfight at the OK Corral.
Yeah, because they were looking for this
stuff of legend.
They're looking for Unforgiven.
So many people have done, right?
Yeah.
Like, so many people have, like, directors have wanted to, like, sink their teeth into this gunfight. And it's like, no, this gunfight was fucking nothing.
They're looking for Robin Hood with flaming arrows and exploding barrels. And,
exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that Ike Clanton, the guy who's shooting his mouth off, is like, I don't have a gun. Don't shoot me.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so well done. I really like that this movie exists to be that counter narrative, that counterbalance, to be like, no, the Old West was some bullshit.
Yeah.
With the Wyatt Earp was maybe heroic, but also a piece of shit. Who abused power, and maybe there was a better way to do things, and also a criminal who was wanted in Arkansas, was a gambler and married to a prostitute. Not that I care about that, but like just going like, this is not the clean cut guy that Kurt Russell is, or that Burt Lancaster certainly portrayed him as, or Henry Fonda, rather.
He's not the conquering, noble hero knight in shining armor that, like, especially I think probably the movies of like the 40s and the 50s and 60s, like because they're enamored with the myth of the Old West, want him to be. This is like in so many ways that a movie like Unforgiven like turns the trope of what is a Western on its head while still being one. I think that's what this movie is trying to do with Wyatt Earp.
I think that's also, it's just like a day late, a buck short, you know what I mean? Like it just it feels like there's so much that Wyatt so that Costner is kind of ahead of the curve on the pulse and going like, I think this will be good, I should do this. And then it feels like anytime it seems like he's following a trend rather than setting out his own course, it falls fucking flat. And I think that This movie is just both on the heels of Unforgiven, which was all like we've already had kind of like the peak revisionist Western that subverts all these tropes. And we've just had Tombstone. It's like, okay, can I do the Unforgiven version of Tombstone? It's like, well, why? Those movies came out in the last 2 years. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And we're not talking about it from like it's been a million years since I've watched Tombstone, and we're very far from it. So I don't think it's just a victim of like, well, if this had just come out, if Tombstone had just come out like 3 years earlier, and this had come out 2 years later than it did, and we had some more distance. Like I think it still does feel like what.
But if this came out before Unforgiven, and if it came out before Unforgiven and Tombstone, I think this movie's a smash hit.
Yeah,
with some of the edits we've already talked about. It doesn't.
I was just gonna say, I think there's other things that are maybe missing, but that's true. Maybe box office wise, it would have been a bigger success. Yeah.
Wyatt has to move his whole family into a hotel so they can be protected. He's like, I'm not going in without a fight unless I know my family's being protected. There's a great scene from Maddie as she notices that Josie's also being protected in the same hotel, and just like having a flip out, like, I'm not gonna be in the same place as that Hebe whore. It's great. The three Earps and Doc Holliday all go to trial, which is also really interesting. This happens also in a movie called Hour of the Gun, which is kind of a sequel to the gunfight at the OK Corral, which I think is interesting to actually show like the justice system, not just the lawmen, but like the actual courts that are going on in the West at this point. But they are all get off on the charge of murder for killing the Clantons because, you know, they were just trying to keep the peace. But shortly after, Morgan in a pool hall is shot in the back. This is really good movie making. I really like it, where there's just that glimpse where you see Wyatt and Morgan share a look, and it's totally quiet. Really, really good, really effective. You know,
you can feel the tension. Bad. You know something bad's gonna happen. Yeah, and it's this kind of thing that I wish had been the scene where Ed gets it earlier, where I thought that one isn't executed as well. This is the kind of scene I wanted for that, where you stretch the tension out. You know things are going well. Everybody's having a good time. Something bad's around the corner. And
and just like cut out all the sound. Those two sharing a look, a smile at each other of like, yep, my brothers, we got off. And at the same time that Morgan is shot in the back, Virgil is told that Morgan's been shot, and as he's walking over to the pool hall, he's gunned down in the street. But he's not murdered. He's just shot up real bad.
Just maimed.
So the youngest Earp brother, Warren, played by a young Jesus.
Jim Caviezel?
That's Jim Caviezel playing Warren Earp.
Oh, man. I had no idea, because he just shows up right at the end. Oh, that is a young, Jim Caviezel. There you go, Jesus himself.
But I honestly didn't notice until my second watch, because there was in the front credits there was James Caviezel. I'm like, no way.
Didn't even catch that. Wow. As we said, I'm not even apparently watching this movie, so I don't know what I was doing.
Yeah, so that's Jim Caviezel. He's also gone off the rails, loony. But what can you do?
Has he? Oh yeah. I guess if you commit to Passion of the Christ, you probably.
Yeah. If that's your thing.
I mean, work is work, so maybe I shouldn't say that. But yeah, I did not know that. I've never seen that movie. I don't have any plans on ever seeing that movie. But
I saw it. You know, it's all right, I guess.
But you know what? He's great in Thin Red Line.
Yep. He's great as young Warren Earp. So Warren arrives, and they're going to take Virgil back home to California. Basically, all of the Earps are going to leave Tombstone. Everybody's getting on the train. We get another scene of Maddie flipping out, and Wyatt going, if you want to be on the train, you got to get there now. And she's like, you don't care if I live or die. And he's like, you're right. No, I don't. Again, just heartless. Like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Poor Maddie. Maddie, take the fucking hint. Dump him. Dump the man.
You can do better. Do we see if she gets on the train or not?
She does.
She does. Okay, because I wasn't sure. I thought because this is pretty much the last we see of Maddie. Yes. I guess save for being there on the train with the other wives.
So we see that the Clantons are all have heard all of the Earp family is on that train to Tucson, and are planning to ambush them in Tucson. We get another great gunfight, but here we see that Wyatt is not only has no problem shooting first, he's gonna bury some slugs in these guys, and he just opens fire on this guy, like just shoots up a corpse like 10 times, or maybe not 10, but a lot of times.
Yeah, it felt like that. I mean, until he's empty.
Yeah,
so
until he's empty.
He had 2 guns, so maybe 10 or 12.
A warrant goes out for his arrest because one, he's not in his jurisdiction, and you can't just kill people willy-nilly. Turns out.
Yep. And they're like, he's like, well, I was bringing him in. Yeah, you're bringing him in with like 10 bullet wounds. Like,
yeah,
you can't. And like, not only did witnesses see you, but like, you cannot justify that you were just bringing him in or it was self-defense when the guy is riddled with bullets.
But he don't give a shit because he's on that Vendetta Ride. He wants to kill everybody. Yeah. Everybody that's responsible for killing Morgan and shooting Virgil. We see them go looking for some people in the woods where Indian Charlie is. Their name for him, not mine. Charlie takes off in the woods, and he's gunned down.
And this is another thing. So Charlie and the guy who, he's in Prison Break. He's in X-Files. He's the guy that's beside him a few times in the scenes in the town. I'll find him eventually here in the IMDb. But I think Adam Baldwin, who plays Tom McClory. So the first scene that I saw them in, they're kind of watching as the gang is rolling into town, and to me, it comes off like they're sort of have this like almost antagonistic look to them. And then there's so many Clantons, and the gang is so
it's hard to know
mixed up and messy that I honestly thought that they were, if not like allies, that they were at least sort of not part of the gang, or I didn't notice that. So then when they're going after him in the woods, I was like, what? Like, it just didn't feel like, especially for that one, there isn't that scene where we really, and I get it, because it's dark and it's rainy and they're trying to get away with murder, like executing all the Earps, because we don't get that scene where we watch him like either gun down Morgan or gun down Virgil or attempt to gun down Wyatt. This scene where he's then being chased through the woods, like, it just didn't feel to me like justified to an audience member, because I didn't hate him, because I didn't really see him do awful things.
Yeah. But so they kill him, and then they're gonna keep on their Vendetta Ride, keep hunting down all these guys. Doc Holliday's getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and Wyatt's like, I gotta send you to Colorado. You gotta get better. And Doc kind of says, I'll go if you come with me. You gotta stop this. You're not helping anybody. When will it end? What will it do? You're losing yourself. Wyatt won't hear none of it. And then the next day we see them in the canyon. They've hunted down the Clantons. It's great where he kind of uses himself as kind of fodder, kind of goes out, puts himself out in the open. And just trust that none of these guys can hit shit.
Can shoot worth shit. Yeah, exactly. And they can't.
And so they expose their position, and then they shoot them all up. This is a great shootout. I like the shootout a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I like how it's structured. I didn't need like the ending of the Magnificent Seven, or even like that scene at the house in Silverado. Like, again, I like that it's messy and it feels real. And I think that there's something, because they shoot it like that, I think, even though apparently this is true from history, I think it somehow makes it more believable that he never got hit once by a bullet, because we don't see these scenes where he's having to dodge out of the way and do these superhero moves. Like, he's just, the Wild West is messy and people are bad shots, and like Doc says in the bar, you know what, you get lucky or you don't.
You get lucky or you don't. Exactly. And from here, it's a bit of a jarring smash cut.
Yeah, especially because this film feels like it has almost like a couple false endings. Like, you think the OK Corral is going to be one, and then you kind of feel like, I don't think in a really egregious way, but then you feel like the train station is one, and then they go to the woods, and then they go to the canyon, and so then when it finally does, we're like, and now really, because then from here it's really just an epilogue. It does feel a little bit jarring. We're like, oh, okay, now we're at the end.
Yeah, but I like it thematically. It makes sense. So we see Josie,
I agree.
and Wyatt, I don't know how many years later, like 20 years later, and they're on the way to Alaska for the gold rush, which I also love. Like that this guy's never stopped chasing his fortune.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That is great. Yeah,
and he's talking points like that's where the gold is, and we're gonna go get it. Won't need to be here any more than an afternoon. And then a young guy notices him, goes, "Are you Wyatt Earp?" and says, "You saved my uncle's life," and tells this story. He's like, "Well, I don't know. Remind me," and tells this story.
Like, I know we're in dramatic purposes here, but like, do we have any justification for like how he would know? Like
that's Wyatt Earp?
That's Wyatt Earp. Just like, is this guy just a
she does say his name. She does say his name, but we never see him clock
that's all I
his
need.
name.
Okay, fair enough.
We never, in editing, it should have been him go, like, we should have seen, that's where we should have seen the guy go, that's what,
like,
Wyatt
hey,
Earp.
Wyatt, blah, 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 this is where the Earps will lay down. And he goes, oh, Wyatt Earp, yeah. So, all right, fair enough. That's all I need. Yeah, you're right. That she could have said his name and he heard it.
Yeah, and he tells this story of this mob that wanted to come after this guy's uncle, and Wyatt Earp kind of pointed his shotgun alone and said, "You're not getting him." They're like, "There's more of us." He's like, "Yep, you could get him, you could get me, but I'm gonna take 12 of you with me first. So what do we want to do?" And the mob dispersed, and he asked, kind of, "Is that really how it went down?" He goes, "If that's how he says it went down, I guess it was." And we get thematically that big thing: what's real, the myth, the story, what pervades.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the movie.
That's it. That's all she wrote.
That's all she wrote. Like, the more I talk about it and watching it the second time, I liked it, but oh man, did I struggle getting through it the first time. Like, I really did. Like, I just think that first hour 10.
I think we both probably come to the same conclusion on this movie, but I had a very opposite experience where and again, it's so much of like, I was able to watch this like in the afternoon, had the setup well, had my focus on it. It was not a slog for me to watch, but as I talk about it more, I see the warts more and more. So much of what works about following this one character, not even through the Old West or in a period piece, but watching this 3-hour epic of this larger than life character, and the slow process. And again, we talked about how, like, I think it was me or you, one of us even watched the director's cut of Dance with Wolves, which is closer to 4 hours. And yet, for all the ways that it can be called meandering, I think it just, pacing wise and the story it's telling, it just works in a way that this one doesn't. And I can't even put my finger if it's particularly the script, because the script has its great moments. The cast is an incredibly talented cast, and I think
it is, but it also feels.
You think it feels miscast in some places?
I think there's a trend coming up where I don't think Kevin's working with the best. As much as I love, like, Catherine O'Hara, is she the best for this role? As much as I love Michael Madsen, is he the best for, like, there's just
it's the one time I've seen Michael Madsen just not be a seedy bad guy.
Even the guy who, like, we could have gotten someone so much better for Morgan than who we got, or James, or, like, do you know what I mean? Like, those are big roles, and it just feels like, I don't know, like, people should be lining up to want to work with Kasdan and Costner at this point, and there's something weird where they aren't, and this travels forward. I think by The Postman, I know I should talk The Postman, but I look at that movie and go, Costner can't get the best anymore. And I think Waterworld a little bit too. I mean, I love Dennis Hopper in it, but there's something happening where it's like people aren't lining up to work with this guy. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard to say if that's like that could also just be, the casting directing is an art. And maybe I'm not here to talk shit about someone I haven't even looked up what their name is, but maybe the casting director isn't bad on that. But I do agree. You look at something like, go back to Field of Dreams, and you're like, Amy Madigan is such an unlikely choice for the role of Annie Kinsella, but she's freaking perfect. She owns that role. It's so well done. And like, recently passed away, may rest in peace, like Ray Liotta, just so perfect as Shoeless Joe. So I'm not sure if that's who wants to work with them, or if they just don't have the same quality of casting director. I don't know.
I think people do a good job, but those are good roles that could be going to star. That's all I'm saying. Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
could be going to stars.
I agree.
And the stars aren't going to work with them. I don't know.
Yeah. I think with some different pieces in place in terms of actors, not that any performances feel like they fall flat, but just that people that, as we know in film, people that can bring something different to the role. I think this is the first time where I'm really looking at who else maybe could have occupied that space in a more interesting way than Kevin, than Lyndon Ashby as Morgan, then Mike Madsen's great, but then Michael Madsen as Virgil. Is that the best place for him, even in this movie? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. Like, Bill Pullman's a bigger star right now and would have been a better James, or like, I like Bill Pullman in this movie, but
I actually totally agree. Yeah,
I don't know. Best review, worst review. Let me tell you, there were some bad reviews for this movie.
All right,
but not everybody disliked it. So we're gonna start with best review from the Chicago Tribune. Michael Wilmington. Though he's dealing with material almost done to death in the movies The Life of the Western Lawman Wyatt Earp, Kasdan approaches it with fresh spirit and dedication. Above all other Earp movies, this 3-hour, 10-minute epic sticks closest to historical record and gives us the deepest sense of who these people were. Kasdan treats Earp, superbly played by Kevin Costner, more as a historical figure than a movie hero. A triumph for Kasdan, Costner, Quaid, and the company. It shows how, in the frontier crucible, love and death, honor and slaughter, friendship and a walk toward doom are all linked together. Mm-hmm. He liked it more than I liked it, but
yeah, I mean, I agree with the areas of praise that he puts on that, especially about like playing it less as the myth, more as the historical figure.
Yeah, and I like that he got that, because some people obviously didn't like it. The next review we'll read, but it's still like, I think in this review too said like it's far better than Tombstone. You're like, well, it's not though. Like, it's
that's a stretch.
I mean, he got what they wanted him to get out of it, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's a triumph for any of those involved, except for Quaid. I think it's Quaid's best performance.
Yeah, for me, no question. Yeah.
You know what? As a building block for Costner to move away from a young man into a more mature, I think it's a step on the way. I don't think.
Don't you think he's already done that though? Like by this point, like when you look at
like JFK, sure.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I guess JFK maybe just plays a little. Maybe it's because Field of Dreams looms so large for me, and he's playing like a dad in that, and we saw American Flyer so early on that maybe honestly I'm thinking I'm misplacing him because of just the roles where he plays older than he actually is.
I also think that's fair. It's like it's more just the type of role, whereas like there's something still so endearing and playful and joyful about Field of Dreams. I don't mean so much that playing an older character, but just trying to have more gravitas.
Gotcha. Yeah,
fair. I think it's the stepping stone in that direction, but I don't think he totally nails it, and he has other big slips coming up. But the worst review from Rita Kempley at the Washington Post. Wyatt Earp, a biopic that lasts more than 3 hours and moves with the urgency of a grazing buffalo. Lacks everything from a coherent dramatic structure to a clearly articulated point of view. The movie recants the lawman's myth in favor of the mediocrities of the man himself. Kevin Costner, on screen almost continuously in the title role, hasn't been this low-key since he made his debut as the corpse in Kasdan's The Big Chill.
Oh, come on.
Of course. There's always that. How many corpse jokes have been in reviews, eh? A lot, eh? Costner's Earp isn't strong and silent. He's long-faced and sexless as a Missouri mule.
Sexless? Fair enough. Sexless as a Missouri mule.
She didn't like it.
I definitely think that I definitely agree. My biggest criticism is the lack of sort of tying together that dramatic structure, which is surprising because I think Kasdan does that quite well usually. And I think that's why, even though things in Dances with Wolves, you would say maybe not a lot happens, I think that it's very clear the structure of that movie and where it's moving towards and where you're going, even as you're surprised along the way.
Yeah.
And I do think this movie lacks that.
It's tough because like the criticism is real. We all just want them to get to fucking Tombstone and give us the story. It's like say the line, Bart, say the line. Like that's what we want to see. And the whole point of the movie is to subvert that and go, no, this is what the guy was really like. This is what led him to become this guy. I appreciate that, but you're kind of making the movie no one wants to see, and especially when everything that happened before isn't that interesting. Nothing is that interesting before. So even when I'm like, oh, maybe this should have been a 6-hour miniseries, I'm like, well, I don't think there's actually. I don't want to watch 2 episodes before he even becomes a lawman in Wichita. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to watch.
Okay, I would in that structure, but yeah, I think again in one sitting, it just it doesn't land the way it maybe wants to, or Kasdan and Costner are trying to make it land.
And of course, in the what Kevin could have category, we have Tombstone. We've already talked about that.
Yep.
He would have been good, and he should have done that one instead.
Yeah,
but then we never would have gotten Wyatt Earp, or maybe it would have been a wicked miniseries. Kasdan just would have done his own thing, and it would have come out later. I don't know.
Maybe we'll get to. Maybe there was I haven't read specifically interviews about how he feels about this, but maybe there was an itch in him that then got scratched, and that's why he went back to do Hatfields and McCoys, and now to do Yellowstone is to kind of go back to that place.
Which Hatfield and McCoys is very much in this world.
Right, exactly. Yeah. What is your memorabilia piece for the Costner Smithsonian?
You know what? I'm going to put that piping hot cup of Joe.
All right. The piping hot cup of Joe. Okay, yeah, I love that. That's good. The piping hot cup of Joe. I think.
How do we keep it piping hot the whole time, though?
Yeah. I think I'm going to go with the billiard ball that hits Martin Kove right in the throat.
That's a good one.
I just think maybe it's my Cobra Kai love, but I love that scene. I think it's great, and I think there should be more billiard ball fights.
Yeah, 100% with you. How about your in memoriam? What of this is getting played?
I'm gonna go with when he's staring through the window. And they said, like, I can't remember who says it to him, but they're just basically, what are they going to do next? And he just gives the line, kill them all. And it just cuts through the window, and he's just got that 1,000-yard stare. I think that's the one, kill them all.
Yeah. I think I like him talking to the bartender, and the bartender going, is there going to be a fight, Wyatt? He says, I think there must be. I think that's great. And that's when he does the as deadpan flat line delivery that just works so well. I think there must be. It's so good. I think I'm going to go with that. And, the gunfights could also... We'll just accent gunfights.
Yeah.
Throw in some gunfights here and there throughout,
Yeah. MVP. Who's your MVP in this movie?
You know what? Owen Roizman does do a fantastic job. But just because everybody talks about Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday, and it'll be interesting to rewatch. I haven't rewatched it in a while. It'll be interesting to watch it with Dennis Quaid fresh, but... Dennis Quaid gives a fantastic performance, and I've always talked shit about the man, and I shouldn't. He's good. He's a good actor.
Yeah,
far better than me. Far better.
Oh, there's no question. He is better than both the people on this podcast. Right now. There's no question about that. We should talk because we're projecting, Dennis.
Yes.
Yeah, mine is I am going to go for a tie here. Dennis Quaid is one for me. I know. Dennis Quaid is one for me, and Mayor Winningham is the other one. I think that because this is maybe not the tightest execution of the life of Wyatt Earp, the scenes with Maddie and with Doc are the ones that keep you invested. They provide the best moments of the movie, and I think they bring out the best parts of Kevin's performance in this movie as scene partners. So
I agree.
Mayor Winningham played Maddie, was just tremendous, and I just love Doc in this movie. I love Dennis Quaid.
Okay, we're into our power rankings right now.
Here we go.
As you may remember, last month we had A Perfect World come in at an 8.33 in fourth place. JFK is still leading the pack at 8.65. We got tens across the board for Wyatt Earp, right? Right, Adam?
Yeah, well, we'll see. Maybe if Nick was on here, she'd do that just to throw a snowball, because this is an example of a guy who's never mean to his dad. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's true. He listens to his dad pretty.
I'm sure Vic loves it.
So power rankings, Adam. What you giving the K-Man on this?
My Costner score for this, keeping in mind, like, absolutely, I do not think this is a whiff. I don't think this is a miss. I don't think we're all of a sudden seeing like, well, where's the guy that we came to know and love?
No.
But and I think that maybe a lot of this has to do more and more. I think a lot of this might have to do with the editing room. Editors do hard work, and I'm sure it was a Herculean task to put this together. In general, this just still does where we see, especially in JFK, the things that work in JFK of that super long film with that performance that has so many twists and turns to it. I just think that a lot of it doesn't work as well as in JFK and as well as particularly as in Dances with Wolves. So I'm going to give the Costner score for this. My Costner score for this is 6.6.
6.6. Oh,
I almost gave him a 6.5, 6.65, but I rounded it up. 6.6. Sorry, I rounded it down.
Okay, and the movie, what do you say?
I wouldn't say this by any stretch is a bad movie, but I will say it's not one that I ever feel like I need to go back and watch. Like, ooh, let's watch Wyatt Earp tonight.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure I will watch it again at some point because I watch movies repetitively a lot.
It'll be a long time before I watch this one again.
Yeah,
for sure.
And it's just not one that it just doesn't stick with me. It just doesn't stick with me, whether for performance or story. Dennis Quaid's performance does, but as a movie, I'm gonna give this a 6.4. Maybe give it a 6.4. Yeah. I know that feels really low, but that's still a solid C. I think that they're not just because of Tombstone. I think that with another crack at it, there's just a much better movie in here.
I think that's where I'd have a problem with the editing, is just like what's included, but not so much like editing of performances. I just think it's the issue with the movie is that Lawrence Kasdan tried to put too many pickles in the pickle jar. It's just like, it's too much. Yep. It's too much.
Fair enough.
And I got pickle juice all over the place now.
Got a pickle explosion going on here.
I don't know what that metaphor was. Pickles in the pickle jar.
It's a sex thing.
Yeah, you get it. If you know, you know. I was a lot more into the Costner performance. I actually rated it the same as about the same as The Bodyguard, but where I gave The Bodyguard points for his work as a producer, I'm taking away Costner points for his work as a producer. So I got him at a 7.2.
This is your Costner score.
This is my Costner score. I like his performance. I like what he's learned to do, and I think I don't like him as the young Costner so much, but I can get around that. Him as Wyatt Earp, I think he's a very good Wyatt Earp. I think he would have been better than Kurt Russell. I think he's very good, but he made a bad choice. This movie is not what it could be, and I think part of that is on Kevin. And the movie, I'm in the same territory as you. I gave it a 6.6.
Yeah,
I think it's fine. It's not like I'm surprised it was as big of a flop as it was. Like, I don't think it deserves to be up there with, the eye roll movies of Costner's career. Like, I don't think it should be counted in that regard.
There's nothing that sticks out glaringly in this movie as like, oof. But I think, like you said, with the pickle jar, there's not just Kasdan. They're trying to do so much with this movie that in the end, I just think that nothing particularly stands out in a negative way, but also nothing really stands out in a hugely positive way. Besides, like I said, some of the performances that I really enjoyed in the supporting roles.
Coming in below Testament.
Wow.
At an even 6.7. We were not even like 6.7325 like we normally are. 6.7.
Not even gonna I'm gonna have to stretch the Instagram post to make them.
Yeah, it's below Testament. Which we all both agreed was a fantastic movie, but
yes, it just
Costner has a bit part in.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not gonna fight it.
Yeah. So what overall that is number 12 on our rankings?
14.
Coming in 14.
14. Yeah. It's like it's below middle of the pack. Like it's below
this. So this is the lowest of the basically of the Costner era, like not counting the ones that
American
from our first.
American Flyers is sitting in at 4.75. I still think we did it a little dirty, but
fair enough.
That's just me. So you American Flyers fans out there,
sorry about that.
Talk to Adam about that. But it's a big jump. It goes wider, 6.7. Big old chasm to American Flyers at 4.75. That's going to get filled up right quick. I think there's going to be a lot of room to a lot of real estate
going
there
forward,
to occupy.
I'm going to need to switch up the formatting, the power rankings, because I don't think we're looking at a ton of top 5s, top 10s in the next little stretch for a while. Not say we won't get back there, but for a while.
We might get back there. There's another Western I'm really excited about in a year or so. But yeah, thanks everybody for listening. Like Adam said, we've got a Patreon, patreon.com/Talkin' Costner. We've got Talkin' Yellowstone up there. We've got our Kevin Multiverse up there. Please, if you like our show, subscribe, give us some love, tell a friend. We really appreciate your support, and thanks so much for listening.
Until next time,
we got The War next month. The War.
Yeah, not the one in Tombstone.
Going off
No.
the board on
Peace.
draft day, talking swing vote, Wyatt Earp and JFK.